Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome back to another episode of the Two Dudes, Brews, and Reviews podcast. Today, we're talking about Looper, the 2012 sci-fi action film starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Bruce Willis, and Emily Blunt. We also talk about our recent trip to see Dave Mathews in concert, as well as argue like a married couple about time travel. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
What's good, homie?
Nothing, man. Nothing going on lately, you know? Usually I start these by saying, it feels like it's been such a long time since we've done a podcast, but it doesn't feel that way, because me and you hung out last week, and we went to a concert.
We did a thing. We drank the drink and watched the watch. Listened to the listen, you know?
Yeah.
Went to a Dave concert.
Precisely.
A really good show.
Yeah, man. This was my first Dave Mathews concert. Typically, I'm not, like, super into their studio stuff. I mean, like, I love their debut record and Before These Crowded Streets, but I kind of, like, they fell to the wayside for me for a while.
Yeah.
I want to say that I was a skeptic going into the show. Like, I knew it would be really great, but I was like, how much am I going to be into this? 5 minutes into the first track, dude, I was, like, in awe.
Yeah. There's some bands that are better live, and they are the ones to see. I actually cannot stand listening to a studio record by them for that reason, because growing up, I would only hear, like, live tracks and stuff that my mom had. She would have somebody that she knew that burned copies of the concerts onto CDs and give them out to people, and can't say any names, but it was a great show.
Good set list, too.
And according to you, Mr. Reddit, that you read that was their, like, most interject they've been on the tour?
That's what they said, yeah. And some people were saying it was, like, the best set list, and there's, like, other people disagreeing. I guess because the encore was, like, the most underwhelming part of the show, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I think I would have rather heard, like, Don't Drink the Water into, like, Halloween or 41 maybe, or All Along the Watchtower. They just haven't played Halloween in a long time, man. And they played that they played that a lot, like through the 2000s and stuff.
Our buddy from work has been chasing that song live for years now. It feels great to go to shows now, though, man. I mean, it's like October right now. We're near the end of the year, finally going to shows. Saw Animal Collective last month, saw Dave last week. I'm missing a Modest Mouse show in Cincinnati right now, actually.
Yeah, I know.
And
I remembered.
I completely forgot about it until I saw someone on Facebook say something. And I was like, I wasn't sure if I was bummed, but I've seen them like 4 or 5 times. And they're not really a jammy band. Like, you just kind of hope to hear certain songs. So, not that sad, really, you know? I'd rather be doing the podcast, actually, in a weird way. So, yeah.
I think they were playing at that Andrew Brady Icon Center, right? That new venue they put down by the river.
Yeah, new Cincinnati venue, which is kind of exciting. I'll make it there eventually.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot of people come there now.
The only show that we have planned is in March for Brockhampton up in Columbus. So that'll be fun, but we saw them at a weird time, Saturation 3 and Iridescence, and they were coming off of like a week or two prior of like...
That was really recent.
Amir, like, left the band like a week or like less than a month before that, so it was kind of a weird spot. But
basically, like, their figurehead guy, he was on the cover of all 3 Saturations. So yeah, that was kind of odd.
Like, heavy producing influence on the band. Like, although they've found their sound again, and I think they're supposed to have another record come out by the end of the year, contractually. So
they're nearing the end of the Atlantic record deal. Yeah.
So hopefully going into that concert when it comes, that they'll have another studio album we can reference, because, like, I really liked Roadrunner. So it should be... Obviously, they're going to play shit from Saturation, just, like, minus Amir.
Maybe we can tackle Brockhampton on the podcast at some point.
Yes.
Kind of surprised that we haven't yet, but there's so much stuff out there that we both like. I feel like we both have stuff on the back burner.
Yeah.
We got the bullets in the chamber, you know, when they need to be put out there.
Especially with, like this podcast. I'm doing Looper. This is not something I ever thought we would have talked about on the podcast, but...
Same,
I get super inspired by just, like... Because I'll shop around on Vudu for, like, movies to watch, and, like... that's usually where I do a lot of my movie watching is through that. And yeah, just like seeing random things pop up, stuff that like I haven't really thought about in a long time. I'm like, man, I need to show this movie some love. And here we are. This movie came out in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 10 years old. Damn, like I almost forgot about it.
So did I, kind of. My wife got it for me on DVD for my birthday, like in 2012, 2013 maybe, and we watched it. And like, I don't think I thought about it again till, you recommended it. When was the first time you saw this movie, like prior to the podcast?
Probably in 2013, because the movie came out in 2012 and then it released on DVD at the end of 2012 at like December 31st. So I probably watched it, I don't know, probably that following winter, spring, and the next year, because it was one of those movies that I watched it a few times when we had it. Rian Johnson has a weird
like filmography.
Yeah, this movie lies somewhere between Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. Something we'll talk about, just the art direction that this film takes is very grounded, like a Nolan movie would be, but then tries to tackle like some grandiose concept. This movie doesn't feel very sci-fi to me. Like, I know obviously like it's rooted in time travel, but it feels somewhere between like a buddy cop film and like a drama.
I get the Nolan thing for sure. I thought that a few times, and I kind of got it in the way that like you have a sci-fi concept, but it's only there to drive forward like a character drama, pretty much. Like, I kind of felt that same way about Interstellar. I think you mentioned that on that episode too.
Pretty grounded, like practical effects. And I mentioned this before the podcast. I said, what'd you think about them prosthetics? And you're like, huh?
Are we talking about Joseph
Gordon
Levitt making him look like Bruce Willis?
Yes.
I thought it was more makeup than prosthetics.
It's both. He has like prosthetics tacked on his face. And when I watched this movie for the first time, I was so young. This is 10 years ago almost, so I would have been like 13. I remember thinking, I know who that is, but it doesn't look like them all the way. I knew it was him just based off the facial structure, but I'm like, something is off about him. I'm like, why does he look so mean? I remember thinking that as a kid. I completely forgot about it until coming back to this film. Yeah, like he has prosthetics all over his face, and he doesn't even like... He doesn't
like
even look,
himself,
yeah.
No.
Well, he doesn't even look like Bruce Willis either.
I mean, like, the actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt does not look like Bruce Willis, but I think, like, he nailed the facial mannerisms.
Yes.
Like, the sarcasm, the raised eyebrow, like, that stuff, like...
Yes.
Like, he was studying John McClane Die Hard or something for this.
It's so odd, because this movie lies between prior to, like, big special effects. I shouldn't say that. I mean, like, obviously... I think Avatar came out before this, but that movie had like a humongous budget and everything. But like this movie relies a lot on just practical effects. And then obviously we'll get into it, but like, the telekinesis stuff with the child and all that bullshit.
I think it's all the better for like the way they approached it that way.
Because it doesn't beat you over the head with that shit.
I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, but this movie gave me heavy Terminator vibes.
Yeah.
Like the low budget, the time travel, like sending someone back in time to do a thing.
To
like,
kill somebody. To kill the sun. Yeah.
And of course, this movie plays out a lot differently than that one does. And I'm giving a nod to TDBR history right there with the Terminator episode that nobody will ever hear, probably.
Thank the Lord.
That's probably all for the better, too.
Jaeger was present on that podcast. I think we did like 4 shots of Jaeger before we even fucking started.
You guys brought over like some kind of whiskey as well. I don't remember if it was Jack Daniels or Crown Royal. Vanilla. Yeah. Thank God the listeners will never hear that, dude. Christ. We've come a long way since then.
Let's Can I lay down the plot for the film?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have a few characters. We have Joe, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he is a looper. In the present time, it is 2044 in Kansas City. He, as a task with being a looper, he is a hitman, basically, for the mob. Because 30 years from now, time travel will be invented, and it will be outlawed immediately, and it will only be used by criminal organizations to kill people.
Because you can't kill people in the future.
Because
did you say that?
Yeah, no, but yes, thank you. There's tracking. I guess there's tracking technology in the future. I guess it makes crime harder. They don't really touch on it a lot, but I guess it would probably make killing somebody a lot harder because I guess you would be able to find a dead body that fast. Think probably like Minority Report shit. Like, yeah, so they send people back in time to kill them there so they can dispose of a dead body. Technically doesn't exist in the current time. And this is all explained in the first, 3 minutes of the film. The whole thing is that when you're a looper, since you work for a criminal organization, you will be killed. You will kill yourself, basically. They'll send you back in time to die, and you'll live 30 years on from that point. Mm-hmm. And that's called closing the loop, according to the film.
And so you can cut all ties with the looper before he gets to the time travel era.
There's no open ends. The whole movie is set up around Joseph Gordon-Levitt lets his loop run. He misses his kill, and his kill is himself, obviously. And Old Joe is played by Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is there to kill the Rainmaker before he becomes the Rainmaker. And the Rainmaker is like...
He's like a 5-year-old boy. In this current time, yeah.
And the boy is Emily Blunt's character, Sarah. The boy's name is Sid. We'll get there.
It's like you have to get all that context out of the way. Because in the end, it's a character drama, like I said. Like, the Looper stuff only matters a little bit. It's just kind of to set up this world.
That's like an hour of the film to set up this. I don't know if you noticed, but like, first 20 minutes are like kind of just all exposition. And then you get to Joe missing his kill about 30 to 40 minutes in, and then after an hour, we get introduced to like Emily Blunt and the son, and then like the back half, the last 50 to hour is basically the run, the action film Terminator style, like hunting down stuff. It's something I want to talk about because it does take like an hour to set that stuff up, but it really feels like super fast. I feel like the pace was pretty good. I didn't have any.
I was going to say that too. The pacing is done really well. Like, it does a good job at keeping you intrigued, like, as it gets to, point A to point B.
Like, there's enough stuff, there's enough mystery within the world itself to, like, keep you, like, tacked on. Because, like, it's obviously, all these things I just said, it isn't, like, just spoon-fed to you right away. Like, it's a little bit of a trickle effect because you get to open up with... Joseph Gordon-Levitt killing his first contract or whatever.
That we see.
Yeah. And then it kind of sets up like this kind of impoverished world. And I think the movie kind of talks about these vagrants, which I assume means homeless. And I guess homelessness must be an issue in the future, which it's an issue now. We get to see like the first person let their loop run, which is his friend Seth.
Played by Paul Dano. My boy.
Paul Dano.
I fucking love Paul Dano, dude.
I drink your water. I drink it up. Yeah, it's... Oh, we gotta talk about that movie sometime.
What movie's that?
You never... Oh, There Will Be Blood?
I've never seen it, dude.
What?
Yeah, I know.
You, out of all people, have never seen that?
The only PTA movies I've seen is Punch Drunk Love and Boogie Nights. There Will Be Blood is on my list, though. I know Paul Dano from, like, Swiss Army Man, and he's the... mentally handicapped guy in Prisoners.
I love that movie.
Excellent. He's great in everything.
Yes.
He plays like kind of the measly, pathetic guy really well. And he plays that in this too. He has that like shakiness in his voice where like, oh my God, I just did something bad.
Oh,
like,
he captures it in this movie too.
Oh,
because him letting his loop run, missing his kill, it's set up that him in the future, he ends up singing a song that his mother used to sing to him, and he knew that it was him and he couldn't kill him, and he lets him run. And this is something I want to talk to you about because what inspired me to watch this movie is that after like looking it up, I got a suggestion on YouTube for that scene of the dismemberment.
Yeah.
And I was like,
this is brutal.
And
there's no blood involved.
It's all imagination, man. It's super smart because I think if they would have shown the torturing that happens, like it really would have like threw off the rest of the film.
Yeah, it didn't fit here.
Yeah. And like the movie's pretty violent because I don't know if you noticed, but like the squib effects of like people getting shot and stuff.
Like the blood explosions? Dude, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
Yes, because they use blunderbusses, they use shotguns, because they're targets at close range, they get sent to them at a certain spot.
But anywhere beyond 15 feet, you can't hit shit.
Yeah.
And that's shown later on in the movie, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Seth, him missing his kill, he lets him run. Seth comes to his apartment, Joe's apartment, and like we know that Joe's been like learning French and stacking his silver that they get rewarded with on their kills, because he's going to go live his life, you know, when he gets to close his loop. Like, he's going to go live it up, because it's kind of known that, like, these guys, like, they live for the present. Like, they're junkies.
They're shitheads.
They kill their targets, and then they go party at night. You know, they all meet up at the
Bell, like, strip club or something like that.
Which is still run by the mob. Like, you know, it's in the back. You get Jeff Daniels playing Abe, which is like kind of like the ringleader from the future that gets sent back to like run it for the Rainmaker and stuff. He's fucking awesome in this movie.
In the few scenes he appears, yeah, he's great.
Let's just get into it, because he, you know, they have to bring back Joe, you know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. They'll bring him back to the club because Abe wants to talk to him, because they know that like him and Seth are friends, and he wants to know where he's at. And he knows that Seth went to his apartment. Seth is hidden under the floorboards where Joseph keeps his stash. This scene, I thought like Abe, you know, Jeff Daniels' character was a good guy. He was like trying to be his friend, like trying to just like, he's like, it's just business, man. You know, he didn't want it to be more than business. And he's like, I know it's your friend, but like, here's what's going to happen.
Well, he respects Joe in particular.
Yes.
Because we see him not respect that one nameless character that I can't think of with the big gun.
Kid Blue. Yeah, they fucking hate that guy. I hate that guy too. He's a fucking puss.
Well, he proves himself to be pretty incompetent several times.
Yes. But yeah, Abe, he's like, look, I'm going to either take half your silver or you can give him up. And he's like, I'm not going to break your fingers, or he's like, just let me talk. You know, he sells out his friend for money. So they go get him, and they God, here we go. Time travel, motherfuckers. They begin to dismember the present Seth to affect the body of old Seth that's on the run. So they carve into his arm, be at 75 whatever street in 15 minutes. And oh my gosh, he starts missing fingers. He starts to lose his fingers as he's climbing the fence in the train yard.
And it's not like shown in like a grotesque way, because like this guy is 30 years older, so they appear as if they're like stubs that have healed. Yeah, and it kind of sets up some of the future plot devices for later in the movie.
And it's really smart. This scene in particular, it just leaves your imagination running wild, because he starts losing his feet and his nose while he's driving, and his tongue because he can't speak. And he's like crying for help out, like after he wrecks the car, trying to rush up to this. It's like they cut his tongue out, cut his feet off, like starts cutting his arms off. Oh my gosh. Like, I remember that scene in particular when I was younger, like really messing with me.
But they can't kill him, the young version, because it'll have too many implications on the future. But this is one of the questions I have. If they chop off the legs and arms and all these like appendages of young Seth, won't that affect the future anyway, kind of?
Yes. And we can start now.
The time travel shit, any movie with time travel, you start looking and like pulling stuff apart, you're going to find holes.
Yes.
Sometimes it's best not to ask the questions, but that's just me. And I was like,
I'm there with you.
And I was like, okay, well, what happens to whatever old Seth experienced in his lifetime? Like, how does that affect all the shit that happened to him? I don't know.
Well,
but we don't know what he did, because he's not the main character of the movie.
I'll answer your question here, because Bruce Willis, you know, him coming back, he's so concerned about killing the Rainmaker so that his wife never dies, yada, yada, yada. He's worried about changing the past. Even the film doesn't confirm that would fix anything. Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character talking to Emily Blunt's character about it, saying like maybe he thinks it'll fix and he'll just go back to his wife after he kills the Rainmaker. Well, the Rainmaker has to exist to even set up the looping contracts in the first place. Yada, 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 yada. It doesn't make sense. And this movie breaks its own rules.
I'm going to get so confused as we go along. I just hope you know that.
It's okay. We'll talk about the movie the way it is. When we start asking questions, you realize that the movie, it actually doesn't make sense.
It's not perfect.
And I know that like makes the movie sound bad, but like
it's not though. It's a great movie.
It's so less about time travel. And you mentioned this. It's less about time travel and more about the characters themselves. And we'll get into the relationships with the son and Emily Blunt and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character growing up and shit, like the lessons they learn and stuff. But yes, it doesn't work. And it's what's funny is that even in the diner scene when old Joe and Joe meet up, if we sit here and talk about time travel, we're going to sit here all day making diagrams with straws. He's like, it doesn't fucking matter. And it's literally a way for the film to say, don't think about it, just go with it.
They're literally looking at the audience and saying, enjoy the ride.
It's super meta. Like, I know it's... And I wanted to talk to you about this. I know you haven't seen Tenet.
Not yet.
This is something that weighs Tenet down, is all the exposition, trying to explain time and the way Christopher Nolan does things, you know, trying to really, like, not leave any open ends to his story and stuff, like, trying to make you...
Okay, so the exposition weighs that, like, kind of hurts that movie?
In a way, yeah. Like, it's one of the biggest drawbacks of it is because it's so complicated that it almost becomes unenjoyable at times. I really like it. Like, I think it's super ambitious. It's like Inception if you times it by 10. Because I remember when my mom was like, I don't understand Inception. Like, I don't get it. And I'm like, I don't know how you don't get this. Like, it's just a movie. But yes, super expository bullshit will weigh down a film that's trying to, like, use some fantastical sci-fi, you know, plot device to drive a story forward. If you get too caught up on it, you'll just think too much. And it's less about that in this film.
And I'll try not to bog down our conversation with questions like that. Although there's some I have to ask.
Yeah.
But it's like something I'll get to later on in the podcast.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie says, fuck you, don't worry about it. Let's move on. I think it's interesting because, you know, after he sells out Seth, we were introduced earlier to a stripper / prostitute, Susie, that, you know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character cares about a lot. You know, that's kind of his squeeze, you know, his service providing woman.
Like, he goes to the club and specifically asks for her.
Yes.
Every time.
Uh-huh. You know, he doesn't want to have sex. He wants somebody to comfort him because he sold his friend out. I think that's kind of a tell to his character because, we get to learn from his interview with Abe that, you know, he was picked up off the streets and, you know, this is his life. This is all he knows. He doesn't have a mother.
Abe is kind of like a fatherly figure to like the loopers that work underneath him. And that Kid Blue guy, I think, is probably the biggest example of that fatherly son relationship between two unrelated human beings. I don't know, like, it kind of seems like this Kid Blue guy, like, looks up to Abe.
You mistake admiration for love. Birdman callback. Yeah, like, all he wants is Abe's attention. And it's quite funny because when he brought back, you know, Joe to see Abe, he fired off the gun. Remember, he's playing around with his revolver. Even Joseph Gordon-Levitt says to him, he says, be careful not to blow your other foot off. And then Abe opens the door right into his head,
causing him to fire the gun off inside the room, yeah.
And it coming from Abe, he can't talk back. He says, be careful not to blow your other foot off. It's kind of a tell of, like, this kid wants that attention, and no one respects him. And obviously, we'll get there. He's a fuck up.
Before we, like, dive too deep into some of the storyline stuff, I kind of want to talk about, like, the world itself.
Yeah.
I love when science fiction movies take a realistic look at, like, what the world will be like. Because this movie takes place in only 2044. That's only 23 years away from here.
Yeah.
And realistically, it's a shithole. I mean, like, we talked about the drugs, the prostitution, the homelessness. Technology hasn't really advanced that much yet. They have, like, hover bikes, and, like, some people have very, very weak telekinesis. But, like, it feels grounded. Like, you have the shitty city, and you still have those, like, isolated farm towns that will probably always be that way. Kind of, like, helped me mentally, like, stay within the boundaries of the movie's logic. Like, I hate when science fiction movies are, like, you know, like, super advanced. It's like...
Everything is super advanced.
It's 2065, and I got a robot dog.
You know what movie does this well? Star Trek, the reboot, with J.J. Abrams.
Really?
It's the same way because there's like these big cities and technology has advanced and stuff, but there's still like farmland and like people still live like rural lives and stuff. Like, but technology is just advanced for like the upper middle class, upper class stuff. And like there's still poverty. And like in this movie, in the first few minutes, like, we get to see somebody trying to steal something from somebody and get shot in the back with a shotgun. It becomes a little bit more desolate and post-apocalyptic future.
I felt that way too. Yeah.
Not to the point where like you feel like everything's on the brink of collapse, but to the point where, you can recognize that the poor get poorer and the richer get richer.
Business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're working on it right now. In our current day and age, we might.
I kind of did have a question about the world in 2044 in this movie. It's established like the loopers and this entire organization is like basically the mob. It seems like when someone lets their loop run, the whole city's looking for him.
I think it's implied.
Is there like authority, like police? Like that's never brought into the picture. It's like these looper people have helicopters and like spotlight cars and they're like shooting up places in the middle of the street.
I think it could be implied that like maybe the police are even like crooked.
That's realistic, yeah.
Yes. And this is a major city. You got to think like even in like mob era, New York City and stuff, like the police are in bed with the mob.
You can pay them to like look the other way.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And like, it's imperative that we find this guy. Otherwise we'll do X to this, your family's at danger. The movie doesn't really talk about that, but yes, you're right. Like everyone's on the look for.
It made me wonder a little bit. And like maybe it's not an important detail. It might just be me being Alex,
Well, you like to ask questions, yeah?
Yeah.
And like there's nothing wrong with things like that because the movie doesn't talk about it. But it's just kind of implied that like the mob is running things.
Because young Joe even walks into like a regular storefront and they have like this plastic bin where they put their guns and it's like loopers, put your
blunderbusses here.
And I was like, can anybody walk into this fucking building? Like,
well, actually, Abe in the interview with young Joe when he's trying to sell out Seth mentions that before he made him a looper, put a gun in his hand, that he found like the front. It was like a store that was like a front for the mob. It
was like a watch shop or something.
He was like fucking like he tried to steal a watch or something, and it was a front. Oops, we're gonna have to get another one of those.
That's all right. My pop filter keeps falling. That's all right.
Yeah, it's a front for the loopers, for the mob, and that was his way. So I mean, there's probably
that might have just been something I didn't like put two and two together. That's why I'm hoping you can fill in some of the questions I got.
Very Nolan-like of just like things happen, and if you miss a small detail, things might start falling apart a little bit.
I'm not going to treat them as like plot holes because I think there's probably an explanation for most of them, and you just gave me one right there. But I got more coming.
Okay,
boy.
I really want to talk about like the diner scene and stuff. A little
My
bit.
favorite scene.
Very cool. Here we go. Old Joe is at a public library or something trying to print out his hits, basically trying to figure out where these kids are born. It's shown later to us in the diner that Joe had connections in the future to like try to figure out who the Rain Man was and stuff or the Rain Man Dustin Hoffman, the Rainmaker, trying to figure out who this kid was, where he was born, try to identify him somehow because no one knows who he is, right? And so as he's trying to put in this birth date and this med code of the hospital this kid was born in, he gets the 3 targets, prints out a map. Present Joe starts inscribing, scarring up his arm like they did Seth to say, meet me here. But it isn't shown. It only like gives you panic before it cuts away to Joe sitting in the diner. It just says the arrow and then says be at.
This was clever.
Smart.
Because Seth, when he was on the run, old Seth, he had a thing that said be at. But Joe's arm doesn't say be at location. It says Beatrix.
Yes.
The name of the waitress at the diner.
Yes. And we get this little banter between, old Joe and present Joe of, I figured you put 2 and 2 together. He said, the other girl named Jen that works here on the weekends. It's less letters. And he goes, oh, yeah.
I like that. Like little bits of comedy.
Yeah. Also, he talks about learning French, because Joe's whole thing is learning French. Oh, before I get too far, at the beginning of the film, Joseph has earbuds in and he's learning French, like reciting French.
Mm-hmm.
In 2012, wireless earbuds were not a thing. And so I remember as a kid, I'm like, whoa, those are so cool.
It's so commonplace now.
Now there's AirPods, like all that kind of stuff. Like,
bro, you drive down the street in Miami University, Oxford. Every single person has AirPods in. Mm-hmm. I feel like I might be the only person. Do you have AirPods?
Mm-hmm. I have the Pros, yeah.
I'm officially the only person on Earth that doesn't own these.
They are very integral with Apple products. I cannot use anything else at this point because the Apple ecosystem has bought out my life.
They keep closing it in, so you have to...
I'm going to have an Apple toaster by 2049. I can play music through my Apple toaster and burn...
Probably won't be that long.
Frank Ocean's Blonde into my toast. The album cover.
Hopefully Blonde 2 by that point.
Yes.
Hopefully we've seen another Frank Ocean album by 2049.
I actually have a small nitpick.
Okay.
And I don't know if you caught up on this. Maybe this is just me. When Joe misses his kill to kill old Joe, he shows up a few seconds late.
Mm-hmm.
Because we get to learn that, Joe's like...
I already know where you're going with this.
Punching the Gatman and stuff, right? And all that bullshit. If he's being sent back in time at a specific point in time, he would not have been late to the time. Like, he wouldn't be seconds late. He would just be seconds late in Joe's...
In his world.
Not... I caught that. That was a small misstep. Because if you think about time travel, you are predetermined to go to this certain spot. You're not going to show up late because you showed up late before you time traveled. That doesn't make any sense.
And to add on to that, if we go along with the movie's logic of he was late because he was busy beating these henchmen's ass, when we see Bruce Willis's version of Joe, it's going to get so fucking confusing. Bruce Willis's timeline of being young, and when he kills his version of Joe, he's late then too. Mm-hmm. But why? Because he didn't
show up late the first time.
He did show up late the first time.
Yeah, but he didn't beat up those guys the first time.
I would think not.
He kills himself the first time and then closes his loop. This is where it falls apart. And we're asking questions as the nature of the podcast.
And this is a small thing, too. It makes you wonder.
When Joe misses his kill, he runs away, gets knocked out and all that shit, and he goes back to his apartment and, he locks the Gatman in his safe under the floorboards and said, he's going to fix this. Falls out the balcony onto a car. And then we cut to him doing the same thing again, but he kills the loop, closes his loop, and lives 30 years. We get like a 30-year time lapse of him living his life, and you get the transition between Joseph Gordon-Levitt growing out his hair into like balding Bruce Willis with long hair.
Yeah.
This is the only like meme-worthy moment in the film, is that 1 second of
I already know what
Bruce Willis having like the Bruce Willis receding hairline with long black hair, and it looks...
He's like
so bad.
He's half emo. Yeah. Like if you looked like that,
you got to cut your hair.
My head would have been shaved by then, dude. Yeah.
I think it was the only way for the film to try to tie in the two characters aging like that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it didn't have to do that though.
Yeah, we already know that's old Joe. That's what he looks like. You didn't have to do the long hair thing. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is that Joe actually goes to China. He was going to go to France, and Abe says, "Trust me, I'm from the future. You want to go to China."
Doesn't elaborate more than that.
But then he does go to China, and instead of going to France, and that's where he meets his wife. And this is old Joe's whole thing, is that he's going to come back in time to kill the Rainmaker so that his wife doesn't die. Because when he's getting kidnapped by the mob to go close his loop, the wife dies because she's outside and one of the henchmen shoot her right in the stomach. And this is implied. Joe says she would have made a great mother. And they shoot her right in the stomach.
That's what I was thinking too.
And it's like, I think the movie's just implying that maybe she was pregnant. The whole thing is that Joe's back to kill the Rainmaker.
I think this was bad planning on Bruce Willis's part.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to get you pregnant, but, in a few months I might be killed.
And he should have known, like, 30 years from a date he would have been coming to get killed. But I think she also knew, she had to have known.
Well, she gets up early in the morning. Before she gets killed, I thought she was leaving the house. Like, this is the day that he gets taken.
Yes.
That's not the case.
Old Joe in the diner, he says, she's going to save your life. And Present Joe's like, I don't need saving. And he's like, shut the fuck up. You're a junkie. You're a piece of shit. Like, you get high and you kill people. Like, you're a piece of shit and you don't realize it yet. I've lived this life. I've realized my mistakes. Yada, yada, yada. Present Joe's thing is like, show me the picture of her. That way, next time when I see her, I'll never meet her and she'll never die. And he's like, no, she doesn't have to die. We can save her. No one is in the diner at this point. It's just them.
This was confusing to me. Were there other people eating before that?
Yeah. There was the waitress and there was a cook in the back. You could see a cook behind the counter or like behind the window, the serving window for the waitresses and stuff behind the counter. There was people behind Joseph Gordon-Levitt eating in the background. And all of a sudden, at the end of their conversation, Old Joe realizes that no one's in the diner.
What happened?
Well, the Gatmen show up. I guess it's just probably implied that they're opened a door and was like, come on out, kind of thing.
Like the two Joes were too caught up in their conversation.
Talking about fucking time travel.
Like we're about to be here soon.
Well, fuck, we're doing it. There's a lot I wanted to talk about in this scene specifically, though, because I don't know if you noticed this, but like when they enter the diner, when Old Joe enters the diner, in the background, like the diner music, one of the lyrics says, on the outskirts of town.
I did not catch this.
Don't know if it was intentional, but I caught it on my first viewing I was like, oh, maybe that was intentional. Like somebody had to have picked the background music. Maybe that was a little small thing that, a producer was hoping somebody would notice. Because they are on the outskirts of town. They're like in the middle of a cornfield, basically, at a diner. And then also, they both order the same thing. They order steak and eggs.
Yep.
Scrambled. And she says, 2 steak and eggs coming right up. So it's like, well, Joe's getting his same order that he used to get when he was younger. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, this is kind of a meta moment, but he says, your face looks backwards.
I was wondering about this. Yeah.
I think it was like a satirical thing to mention that they're not the same person.
These two motherfuckers don't look anything alike.
I think that was the film's way of subtly saying like, yeah, we know, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah,
that's kind of funny, actually.
But, we get a little fight scene, shoot, 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 bang, bang, bang.
Pew, pew, pew. Yeah.
A couple Gatmen get killed, and, Old Joe runs out the back, and then Joseph Gordon-Levitt has to run away on a bike to not be captured by Kid Blue to go back to Abe. Joe, dumps off the bike in the cornfield and lets it run, and then he has part of the map of the 3 hits
that Old Joe gave him. Yeah.
That he rips off or whatever in the middle of their tussle or whatever. And enter Emily Blunt and her son. I believe she's knocking down on the tree, axing a tree stump when we get first introduced to her and stuff. And, this happens right after everything we just talked about. The scene moves straight into it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is moving towards his farm. He hides in the cornfields or the cane. I really like this. This is good world building here. It's a small thing, but Emily Blunt, she recognizes
movement in the corn
and goes out, brings a shotgun out there, and we get her little dialogue of
I've buried 3 vagrants this year alone.
Dude, her accent, it was believable as fuck.
Is she British?
I believe so.
Damn. Very convincing farm working American.
Or she has an English accent, yeah. I'm not sure exactly where she's from. She's married to John Krasinski, right?
Is she?
Yeah, from A Quiet Place.
That dude's doing all right, ain't he?
Yeah, he's got it made, bro. Good for him. Yeah, Emily Blunt is a beautiful woman. But yeah, she thinks that Joe's a vagrant, he's some homeless person that, is there to either, rob or kill or beg for food and water or whatever. We get introduced to, Sid, the little boy. That's one of the marks for, Old Joe to come kill. And, during all this time, we get to see Old Joe actually go and, kill these kids.
Man, this movie does not shy away from some pretty heavy subject matter.
And we can let's talk about that because the movie doesn't dwell upon it too much. It actually happens pretty fast, but like you realize like the lengths that
he's willing to go, and you don't like visually see the kids die.
Yeah, it's just implied.
That's such a taboo thing in film. You know, like pre-teenager person dying. And I've only seen a few examples of that happen. I've seen it in the Halloween remake they just did, and in Hereditary, a 13-year-old gets decapitated. Brutal. This movie, it was effective in like not showing it. You just see like the muzzle of the gun, and then like
the kid had a key to under the mat, right? And he drops it. That scene, after he kills the kid and realizes that kid wasn't the Rainmaker, he has to walk away, and he's like in like this kind of like this public park, like
he's under some kind of like underpass of some sort,
and you get to see him like weep, and he knows what he just did, and it didn't fix the problem. His whole thing is that he gets to see what happens in the future, and these kids' death is less than what happens later, because apparently, you know, the Rainmaker has killed all these people and like has unprecedented power that, you know, no one's ever seen before, and he killed all these people like by himself without an army.
Yeah, but they don't know anything about the Rainmaker, their gender, like visual appearance, or like anything like that. So yeah, it's like a crapshoot. Like I've got 3 names, and I have to wipe them out till I know I've got the one.
Very Terminator style.
Yes, Arnold looking through the phone book. John Connor. Yeah. I have to praise this movie because this might be the last time that Bruce Willis cared about acting. Like him weeping under the bridge. It
was very believable.
It caught me because I was like, Bruce Willis is acting. What? And he does some Bruce Willis-esque things throughout the movie. Oh yeah, I got some stuff to say about it. But yes, this movie holds a special honor for that. They got Bruce Willis to cry on camera.
I guess it kind of shows his character. It really helps develop him because I mean, he's been on screen, you know, for like less than 30 minutes now. You know, Bruce Willis, and you know, this really like gives you an idea of like the weight of the situation. There's a Down syndrome vagrant that walks through the corn late at night. Sarah, Emily Blunt's character Sarah, thinks...
I think they might be mute, deaf or blind or something like that, because she shoots off the gun.
And he keeps walking forward.
It doesn't affect them at all.
There's like a sign around their neck that says like, you know, please feed me, yada yada. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character like thinks it's Joe because... Excuse me. He's still out in the grass or in the corn as well, and like kind of comes in and intercepts.
Like he has to make himself known. Like at this point,
his character is going through withdrawal because you know he's a junkie, and like
we haven't mentioned the drug in the movie.
The drug is like eye drops.
It's very open to interpretation of like what it is, how it affects you.
Party drug type of thing.
Like some of the scenes early in the movie, you see like he's looking at the lights and they're like super, you know, brighter than usual.
Like Molly type of thing.
Yeah, but we don't really know what it is, what it does for the most part.
It's good character or good world building.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be like, and this is
the drug that we like to do.
It's ravaged the world. That'd be lame.
Yes, it's kind of a thing right out of like a Blade Runner or something. You know, like just like you're here, like things. You know, these are the norms. Like these are the drugs. These are the things that people do. Don't ask questions, but like everybody in society respects that these exist. Yada yada yada. After that.
She's kind of forced to take him under her wing for a little bit.
Yeah, and she, you know, Sid gives him water, and you know, and Sarah's very reluctant to, you know, tries to keep Sid away from people. We'll find that out. One of the big things is that it's revealed to us that, you know, her son does not call Sarah mom. He calls her Sarah, which is like starts to sew in, you know, questions in your mind of like, why didn't he call her mom? You know, why does he turn away from her? You know, it's good story building. It allows us to recognize like there's something else here to this family. Sid, you know, he gives him the water, and that's kind of like their first interaction because, you know, Sid wants to help. He wants to help Sarah and help the man. He calls him the man. Is he a bad man? And she says, no, he's a vagrant, and he says that his shoes are too shiny, to be a vagrant. It's to show that this kid's smart.
Yeah.
What did you think about this whole scene? I don't want to keep talking over you. There's so much exposition. It's done really well. In a way that it doesn't feel like you're being trotted along.
Well, I think the first time I rewatched this last Saturday, it's the first time I'd seen the movie in almost 10 years. And I almost forgot how important all this was. And I'm looking at the lens of a first-time viewer, overall, it doesn't seem that important yet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the last half of this movie is about to take place on this farm.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it does a great job at establishing a strained relationship between these characters. Because Emily Blunt doesn't want Joseph Gordon-Levitt to have any interaction with her son, but the son's smart. But it's small details that make it all matter. The fact that he can tell that his shiny shoes, he's not just some homeless guy. And I think this scene alone doesn't really, it just picks up from here. It's this scene alone doesn't really establish that, but it keeps picking up steam as we go, especially the next morning when Joe wakes up and he's chained to the bed, still going through withdrawal. Oh man.
Yeah.
It goes some places,
Well, she shoots I'm not a big gun guy, but there's a shotgun ammo that is a assault, a rock spray. Use it for
knocking somebody down or threatening them, but not killing them.
And I think it's a bird thing because birds don't need some big slug to shoot them. I mean, you can. You definitely can shoot skeet with a slug, which is basically a
waste of ammo, honestly.
Yeah. But if you use a big spread, it only takes a small amount to kill a bird. Mm-hmm. So you're widening the area to try to kill a bird. But she shoots salt into him because he wants her to confirm that this is the house on the map. And she goes, "What is this?" He goes, "It's a map." I just told you it was a map. And she wants to know why her house is marked, and then she notices the numbers, and that's Sid's birth date and the house, or in the med code of the hospital. Mm-hmm. And that's when she's like, "No, fuck you. What are you doing here?" And this is where the characters kind of become collaborative, and their relationship starts to meld together a little bit. The whole thing is that she's still "Don't fucking touch my son, but you can stay here." He's like, I just need to stay out here in the barn. You won't hear from me. I just need to look out for myself, coming to kill you.
I found it interesting that Emily Blunt already knew what a looper was, because he starts saying he almost gives the monologue from the beginning of the movie, saying time travel hasn't been invented yet, but in 30 word for word. But she's like, "You wanted them loopers," and it's how does she know that?
Well,
awesome with the answers. Give it to me, boy.
She said her whole thing is that we get to find out that, yes, Sid is her son, but Sid does not think that Sarah is her son, or is his mom. Excuse me.
But she doesn't say that, though.
No. Sid does at the table later that evening because Sid wants to make communication. And this kid's smart as fuck. He takes apart his toys, has two little frogs that when you hit one, click one frog, depress on the frog.
It's like a walkie-talkie,
yes,
basically, without the talkie part.
Because he wants to help. He wants to help out Joe.
Young Joe takes credit for making the thing.
Yes.
He's like, I made it out of some parts in the barn.
Yes.
I thought that was funny.
And she says, "When?" And he goes, "Last night. Don't tell him I told you, all right?" And he tells her that, he says that you're not his mom, and she gets to explain to us, and this is where I'm getting at. This is why she might know that he's a looper. She says, "I had Sid when I was 22. I had to leave him with my sister because I couldn't give up my life in the city." It makes me think that she was integrated into maybe this lifestyle a little bit,
the stripper prostitute scene.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing, and she knew about the drug too.
Yes.
So maybe she was on it.
She said, "When's the last time you dropped?"
She knew about the symptoms and the recovery time, everything.
It's a small thing. These are small little droplets of information, but they can kind of help you tie in that she knows more than you might think, and she knows that he's a looper, because she lived in the city. She's not stupid. The city is run by the mob. Yada yada yada. That might answer your suspicion.
Why didn't I put that together?
Because I'm a fucking wizard, bro, and you're not.
You're a magician, Harold.
I'm a Harry wizard. Fuck yeah. We got it, bro.
Okay, that makes sense.
We also get to see that Sid, he is very powerful.
Yes, he is. And it's displayed for the first time in a very subtle-ish way. And
What?
Well,
Yes, I know what you mean.
I watched this with my wife for the first time, and when Sid is getting all mad at Emily Blunt and like her hair starts waving, for some reason part of my brain was like, this is an action movie's way of telling me that, like, I don't know what it was telling me. Like, the TK thing didn't come into my mind though. I'd forgotten everything about when I saw it 10 years ago. I was like, the kid's yelling, her hair is waving. Like, this is just a dramatic way of like an action movie telling me a thing. Completely forgetting about the TK thing, like, altogether.
She locked herself in the safe, though.
That's what got me thinking.
I knew what it was getting at. It wasn't like perfect, especially upon my first viewing when I was younger. I remember thinking like, maybe this kid's like just a psychopath, and like starts hitting her and like shit like that.
Well, he knocks her down.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like, but you don't really get to see his powers like really bolster up like we get to see later. It's very subtle, but it's one of those things where you're like, you start adding more mystery to the situation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we get to see after that, like, old Joe goes for the second kill, and the second kill, the kid is actually Susie's child, the stripper.
I didn't even notice that was the same actress, dude.
He says...
He just say, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
But I thought it because it was a woman, a girl.
He didn't want to... No. It was Susie's child. He fucking shot a little boy with curly hair. He don't give a fuck. There ain't no taboo about him. But yeah, he's like scouting that place out, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but like, yeah, I'll just kind of give us a little fast, but like, Kid Blue is like still trying to prove himself, so he's like trying to find old Joe still, so he can make Abe love him still, you know, because Abe's already pissed and like smashes his hand with a hammer and tells him to fuck off.
Took his gun. Technically, he's not even under the job anymore. But he's doing this
vigilante
work
just for Abe. You know, he wants this just to prove himself that he's wanted to do a good job. You know, old Joe, he goes in to kill the second kid, and Kid Blue is waiting there for him to tase him. At that point, though, here we go, a little another time shit. We got to see a Gat Man come to the farm to look for Joe.
Old Jesse.
Mm-hmm. And Jesse's actually a good guy, apparently. Because, Joe tells Sid that, he's actually a good guy, but he'll be gone in a few minutes. And this scene creates a lot of anxiety because...
It's one of my favorites.
He hears drafts in the house, and, he wants to go. He's like, oh, shit, pulls out his gun. Emily Blunt lies to him, says that she has a husband, and the kids are with the husband in the city. But really, Sid's upstairs.
Why'd she lie about the kid being there? Maybe so, like, he wouldn't have an outburst like he does have.
Emily Blunt, her character Sarah, is so smooth about this. She is laying in bed, and, she needs the touch of a man. And she beeps the frog, like as if something's wrong. I'm like, damn, that was smooth. I wouldn't have thought of that. These girls, I tell you, they really know how to fuck with a man's mind.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to come at you with the opposite.
You're going to be like, man, why the fuck did they do that?
I found this scene kind of pointless. I don't know about you. Like, when it first appeared on screen, she's laying in bed. She's got the dress on. And, like, she was kind of, like, rubbing her leg. I already knew where it was going. I thought the movie didn't need a romance. Even though, like, it doesn't dwell on it. Like, after this happens, maybe it's just used as a device for him to care about Emily Blunt more.
Well,
go on.
I wanted to say, I know you may say that it's not necessary, but after this, after they have, that kind of time, she explains to him that, she's floating the lighter around very strongly. And he's like, wow. Like, she says, like, usually guys try to pick me up with quarters by floating quarters. Call back to Joseph Gordon-Levitt saying that.
Yeah. This
is a way to show that Sid has really strong telekinesis powers, and so does she, but it's even less than, or it's more than the average, but less than Sid. And she's like floating this, this lighter around, yada, yada, yada. And she says, oh, I used to use it to, TKs would try to lift quarters to, flirt with me. I would keep their quarters down just to fuck with them. After that, after this little joke, we get a chance. She talks about when she was living in the city, when she was with men, they would always look lost. And she talks to Joe about when I came back home after my sister died, the look that Sid gave me, I abandoned him. He had that same look in his eyes, of like being lost. And I think it's a way for us to it's more of a plot device to just like a pillow talking situation. And she gets super emotional about it, but it's just a way for the movie to describe
her to get on that level with him to like disclose that kind of information.
Yeah. And yes, I know it like kind of feels like tacked on a little bit. But you gotta think, this woman's been in this goddamn house all alone for fucking years now. The poor girl's needs some love,
And she's got someone that she can trust, and like that actively shows like by saving Sid, and like when they go to that underground bunker underneath the farmhouse. I can see that.
That happens afterwards. I meant to try to put that in there because
No, that scene happens after Jesse stops by the house.
The first time, yes.
The first time.
Yes.
It's the next morning when he comes back.
Okay, yeah. But she knows that Joe has best intentions. He's just trying to stop someone from coming and killing this kid. No, like the story kind of takes a weird turn from like the manhunt of like hunting down Joe into family, friendship dynamic that the movie...
The entire Looper profession feels like so far away at this point.
And it happens so seamlessly, but it just transitions. The movie's about these three characters, Joe, present and future, and then like Sarah, Emily Blunt's character, and Sid, the child. It's like such a seamless transition that by the time you get to the end of the film, you're like, oh shit, like you kind of forgot how you got here. And it's not a drawback. It's like masterful the way
like you're not going to be like consciously thinking about it as you're watching the movie. Like you're kind of like in it.
Because think about it, like it becomes less about time travel and like Looper, drug, crime life, and it becomes more about like
it's about humans, bro.
Yeah.
And their relationships.
It's great.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And we get to see like Sid kill Jesse.
Oh boy,
it was awesome, bro.
Okay, yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Actually, Joe gets up in the morning. Emily Blunt's not there. He walks downstairs, and she's being held at gunpoint by the same Gatman Jesse that was there the day prior. It seems like he's ready to give himself up. He's like, "All right," like he drops his gun. He's like, "You can take me in. This will be the end of it." But then Sid appears on the staircase.
He walks down the staircase. And Jesse points his gun at Sid, and Sid falls down the staircase. Enter killing fucking Jesse, bro.
I love how Sarah, you would think that she would go to like grab Sid.
She knows what's going to happen.
She grabs Joe instead and like pushes him out the front door because he's trying to save Sid while he's like falling down the stairs. Yeah, she knows a storm's coming, and a fucking storm we get, dude. This is probably the most amazing scene in the movie for me. Sid's first showcase of his telekinesis powers. Visually, it's amazing. He starts lifting up all the furniture in the room.
It goes straight to the ceiling.
And like Jesse floats up there too. And he starts to rip apart in slow motion.
Like you can see the blood pull up to the surface of his veins, to his face. Him yelling at the kid like, no. And you see like the blood starting to pour out of his chest, which like it doesn't like really show like him like dismembering or like his chest cavity busting open, but it's like the blood just starts draining through his like pores or something.
Let me remind you, Austin, this movie was made on a $30 million budget.
Okay.
Right? Here's my weekly jab at Jack and Jill.
Oh God.
Jack and Jill had $50 million more to their budget than this movie did.
What?
Yeah, remember that was made on $80 million budget.
What?
Yes.
How? Did they take the whole fucking crew on fucking a cruise 3 times a year?
I think they give like David Spade $30 million,
Jesus
dude.
Christ.
It had to have been. Yes.
That's so frustrating.
Incredible special effects. Emotionally, a great scene. And it's a amazing aha moment, like light bulb in your head for the audience.
And you know Sid is the Rainmaker.
And so does Bruce Willis, because
Yes.
he knows everything that young Joe knows.
Yes.
Because they're the same person.
Mm-hmm. His actions become his memories as they happen. And that's what I was tying back to, you know, when Joe gets tased, old Joe gets tased in the apartment that he goes for the second kill, he says, the Rainmaker. Flips on the lights, so he doesn't have to kill this kid now. He knows that this kid's the killer. Mm-hmm. And then he gets tased, and, you know, we kind of forget about him for a second because Kid Blue captures him. I want to shine light on Emily Blunt for a second because as they walk out of the house, her acting is incredible. Like the fear and the care of a mother for her son is achieved in a prestigious manner. Unlike it, I buy into it 100%.
Oh yeah,
perfect, dude.
Same here, man.
The panic in her voice, like her plea for like, please don't kill my boy, because now Joe's like
he realizes how powerful this kid is.
He's not from the future. He doesn't see. You know, he pushes Emily aside and runs towards the corn to find Sid. I found this interesting because he finds him, you know, and Sid's covered in blood. And you get to see, instead of killing this boy, he's like, oh, this is just a kid. He's got this chance to build like a little relationship with him in the back half of this movie of like getting to understand him. You know, he's expressed like he didn't have a mother, you know, and now, you know, Sid thinks that he watched his mother die, but in reality it was his aunt. You know, he's like this lost kid. You know, he realizes they're kind of the same, and like he feels for him a little bit, and he chooses not to kill him even though he has every opportunity to just kill this kid right here. But he realizes it's not about the kid, you know, it's about like old Joe. Like old Joe's the problem, and he's like he's got to see this relationship build, and like even like the love that his mother provides him and stuff. It was like the turning point in Joe's head of like, I gotta save this kid and like protect this kid for sure.
And I think this is the point in the movie where I forgot to mention this earlier. Throughout the movie, we have two versions of our protagonists, right? Mm-hmm. And they're both kind of selfish. Young Joe, drug addict, obsessed with money. The only reason he's protecting the kid is to
kill old Joe to close this loop.
Old Joe thinks he's dignified by like going back and killing the Rainmaker.
Yeah.
But he's killing innocent kids. He's like mowing down people. They're both doing their own things for like selfish reasons. But this point right here where like young Joe decides to protect the child no matter what is where he kind of becomes like the solidified protagonist of the movie. And I enjoy that.
It's a good character development. You get to see him turn into a selfless version of himself to where he realizes the stakes are bigger, because his whole thing is like, I don't want to meet my wife, you know, show me your face. I don't want to see her. I'll see her face and I'll turn away.
Both very stubborn characters.
Mm-hmm. He just wants to go spend his money and just fucking forget it all. The whole thing has been about, I got to kill myself, you know, to fix this problem that's been put in place. He just wants to go back. He wants to learn his French, all that bullshit. We get to see Bruce Willis kill everyone. We get to see Bruce Willis go full Die Hard, you know? And this was kind of meta.
This is something I wanted to ask you, actually. Is it put into Bruce Willis's contract when he signs onto a movie that he is going to be full badass no matter what and never show any weakness?
I think that's Bruce Willis reflected into a movie, yeah.
I feel like it's like in his contract, like, all right, I'm going to do this movie, but I can't show weakness, and I'm going to kill a lot of people.
I actually love this so much because
it's a great action scene.
Because I feel like the whole movie, the violence has been like very personal, like very one-on-one, very tension-based. A lot of like interrogation, and then like one-shot kills. You get to see like these loopers just, you know, kill somebody without restraint. And this is like the one scene of action that's not like one-on-one, Sid using his powers, or like someone getting shot, getting a hammer to the hand. You get to see some fucking guns go off finally. You get to see some people use the weapons that they carry around the whole fucking movie.
And he shoots off Kid Blue's other foot. But the reason I say that is because, like, he does it so effortlessly. He just mows down, like, 10 people, no problem. And, like...
I'm here for it.
I'm here for it, too. It's just, like, I know...
Yes, you get to see Bruce Willis go Die Hard, bro.
He's like, I won't do this movie unless I get to fucking mow down crowds of people.
That was probably like the contingency on him crying on screen. He was like, I'll cry on screen, but I want my body count to be at least 20. I want to kill at least 20 people in this movie.
Yes.
And yeah, it's super fun. You get to see the power change from, you get all these hired guns, they just get mowed down because he kills like the guy that runs the armory, and then he takes like these P90s and like just dual wields P90s like straight out of fucking Modern Warfare 2. And it's not like super like 80s action, like it does have like a hallway sequence and stuff. It's not like he's just like, take this motherfucker, yeah. Like it's not.
He doesn't have a one-liner.
Yeah, it's
thank
not.
God.
But he is covered in blood when he goes into Abe's office and shit. Like covered.
Yes.
I thought that was so funny. Like I was like, you know, we get to see a little. The movie's a little self-aware, you know.
I find it interesting because on my first rewatch in a long time, for some reason I remember Jeff Daniels being a bigger part of this movie. You know, Abe, and I was like, okay, he's like the big bad guy, right?
Yeah.
He's killed off screen in a nothing scene. And that's okay. That's not a criticism, because even young Joe makes comments about he took over the city, and that'd be impressive if it was any other city. Abe is kind of like a little lazy shithead.
It's even shown in his character wardrobe. He wears like silk robes, like he's lounging around in pajamas, you know? Like this is just like...
And he criticizes young Joe for dressing up.
Yes. In the interrogation, he's like, you kids got to do something different, you know?
It's kind of a nice detour. Oh, we've set up this big bad villain. Not the case at all.
He doesn't have like a black suit, black tie, white shirt, you know, like Godfather style. It's like he's chilling. He came from the future. He's just chilling. He has everyone else do his work for him. Even when he interrogates Joe the first time, super chill, pours himself a drink. He just wants to talk, you know? He lets everybody else do the hard work, you know? He's just here to oversee the operation and just chill, lounge around.
I like that a lot.
It's very different from, like, what you would expect out of, like, a mob movie, you know? Very uptight gangster. No, he's just chilling, man. And, yes, he is killed off so fast. And I think it's him being killed off, like, you don't even get to see him be shot. You get just see him dead. It's just to point out, like...
It doesn't even matter.
Serves no purpose.
Yeah.
The movie's not about the mob. After he kills everyone, he brings a truck full of silver, which we get to find out later. But he's like, old Joe tells Joe, I fixed it. You can go live your life now. Just let me do this. And you get to see Kid Blue. He comes in on a bike, right? And starts shooting at, you know, young Joe and old Joe. I thought this was a really cool, smart way to kill Kid Blue. Because Joe can't hit him with the blunderbuss, and Joe knows that, and so he shoots the asphalt, kicks up dust to where Kid Blue can't hit him, and as Kid Blue rides up, he shoots him because Kid Blue can't see him. Just a really smart thing to do.
And you never see his like dead body or anything.
No.
Because it was never about
it's not
that
about
guy
him.
either.
Not about him. And it's super smart because then Joe realizes that old Joe he's running towards Sid, and he's got to go find him real fast, you know. And Sarah and Sid are packing up the truck that Jesse brought, you know. Joe tells him, you know, pack up stuff, get out of here, head north, get out of town. This final scene, man.
It's not some like big action extravaganza either.
No.
It's a culmination of all the drama that's built throughout the film.
It's kind of funny. It's quite like the film itself, like one big loop. It's very Nolan, like tying the circle, like putting the knot on the end of it, kind of thing. Sid flips the truck because old Joe is standing in the middle of the road. You know, Sid's like wants Sarah to stop because Sarah's like, I got to run over him. I got to get out of the way. There's no way out of here. Sid flips the truck because he's so worried about it. He has a gun, and he holds up his hand and flips the truck upside down. And Sid's immediately like, I'm sorry. And, Sarah's like, it's okay, baby. Super motherly. Like, don't worry about it. It's okay. Really holds it together.
But there's urgency in the situation. They got to get the fuck out of this truck and run.
And they run. Oh my God, the tension that builds in this scene is insane. And they run across these mowed down cane. Like there's no vegetation, and they're running across like these little plots of land, like
AKA there's no cover.
Sid gets shot in the face, but it grazes his cheek. The bullet doesn't hit him completely, and you think for a second that he's dead. Sarah's yelling, "No, like my baby," and the ground starts shaking. Sid is alive and like uses his powers and like just blows all this dirt up. Present Joe, young Joe, is riding up on the vehicle that old Joe brings in, right?
Yeah.
And that truck gets flipped over. He holds up Sarah and old Joe, right? And this was like, I think, the most powerful part of the movie because you get to see Sid and Sarah
connect for the first time on a motherly son level.
In his rage, Sid is about to kill both of them because he's holding them both up. And instead of like saying like no, like yelling and screaming at Sid, she immediately turns to like, it's okay. It's okay, real quiet. This like little interaction is like probably like one of the most powerful parts of the movie. It's like you get to see this kid finally like let his guard down and like realize that he doesn't have to, because his whole thing's been like, I gotta protect. I wasn't strong enough to save my mom. That would drive his, rainmaker mentality of like, I've got to be the strongest. You get to see like them changing the past, right? Like they get to change the future. Yeah, it was just super powerful. But old Joe's still there, and he's about ready to kill this fucking kid.
And young Joe is out of firing range.
So he does what he can. And I remember watching this when I was younger and being like, whoa.
We get like a, not like a flashback, but like a flash forward of what could happen with an inner monologue from young Joe saying, in that moment, I saw the loop, the circle, like his mother dies and he grows up young and alone and angry and powerful, and like that's what leads to the Rainmaker. And so he does the only thing he can do, and he takes the blunderbuss and shoots himself in the fucking chest.
Yeah.
This caught me off guard. The first time I watched it in 2013, it caught me off guard. And, 4 days ago when I watched it, it caught me off guard.
It's funny, this whole podcast has been building up to this one moment, just like the movie has. We've had to lay down all this crazy groundwork for it.
This is very early era Two Dudes Brews and Reviews, because this movie kind of like
the way the story moves,
it's like you gotta
get all the way to the end.
You have to, even if like people that are listening to this have seen the movie. It's like we gotta catch you up on it. Like
you gotta remember like why all these things are important.
It don't matter if you watched it a month ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. The context is so important.
And it's funny because the whole thing has been like this small little trickle details throughout the movie that just build and cascade into each other into like this big climactic purposeful ending. The whole movie is like super masterful in the way it reveals information to you and like keeps you on your toes and keeps you guessing and wondering about the world. All that has to tie into the very end. What makes it worth watching? Because like the whole movie, if you cut the last 15 minutes out of the movie and you only watch the, an hour and 45 minutes of it, you would be like, I don't understand how this comes to conclusion. So the last few minutes are so integral and important to the film. Like they, from beginning to end, like the movie is very, everything that happens matters, and it took so long to get here, but there's a reason why it works, because everything that happened is a callback to the future that everyone is worried about happening.
A callback to the future.
Yeah.
A call forward.
Yeah, exactly. It's really rewarding though. There's nothing upsetting about it. It just takes so long to get to this big finish.
It's a great climax but I could see people hating this.
Yeah.
And when I watched with my wife a couple of days ago, the movie ends and she said, "Is that it?" And I was like, what else is there?
I think the film, it creates these rules. Like, we'll get, like, I know we talked about the movie breaks its own rules, but like...
We're about to get into some shit right now.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Like
we can move into it though. You can, go on.
One thing that's important to me is like the world building, like the blunderbuss. Like the blunderbuss can only go so far, and like that's why that mattered. The Rainmaker saw his mom die. Old Joe said that in the diner. Well, that's why that mattered, because if Old Joe killed his mom right in front of him and like let him go, that's why that mattered. All these characters like played such a big role in their small roles to make things matter. Like there's like all these little strings of connection of like this mattered, this mattered, this mattered. Even if they were so small, they made the biggest difference of like proving the point of the film. The mother and the son, him being so confused, like he watched his mother die, and the whole film has been about him not like knowing his real mom, having all this hate and anger. It's just these little things that make like, I think that's like super rewarding and like masterful to like make sure like there's like these loose ends that matter, you know?
Piss break.
You wanted to ask some questions to fuck with me.
Yes.
We finished up the movie as far as story goes.
So this movie is excellent. The storytelling, acting, cinematography, all that stuff is so on point, but there's stuff that bugs me. And it might be like I'm missing something. And it might be one of those things where I ask you a theory and you just say, oh, there was this small detail that I so happen to miss. I guess I'll go into it.
Okay.
The Rainmaker, he exists in the future because he saw his mom die and he got shot in the jaw. And Bruce Willis even says a thing about he's got a fucked up jaw.
Synthetic jaw.
So in Bruce Willis's version of his timeline, he didn't go back to kill Sid. Therefore, he wouldn't have shot Emily Blunt.
Here's the thing.
And I have an answer to this, but I'm going to ask you.
Okay. My thing is, actually, Avengers Endgame talks on this, is that you can't go, it's happened so fast, but it says, your future, say that me and you time travel, the future becomes our present. The past that we left, that we traveled from, becomes our past. So our new future that we've created cannot change our past. If I have 25 cents and I go back in time and invest,
You're already confusing me, but I'm with you.
If I have 25 cents and I want to go back in time to 1913 and invest that 25 cents. So if I go back to 1913, well, the 1913 has become my future. Just because it's the past chronologically, when I go there, it becomes my present, therefore my future. Therefore, I was part of the past. Time is so linear that like thinking about things like point A, B, and C being the farthest point in future. If you're at point C and you go back to point A becomes point D just because it's your future. The future becomes the past because you go to the past, which becomes your present. And that can't affect your current future. Like, it's complicated.
If you can't affect your current future, then why do you go back to kill the Sid?
Because this movie doesn't care.
It's not like a movie-breaking thing for me.
We're not theoretical physicists, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
I can state for a fact to our listeners, we are not theoretical physicists.
I ain't no Neil deGrasse Tyson, goddammit. I don't know.
But in the logic of this movie, Bruce Willis's version of events living up to 2070 or whatever.
I get what you're getting at.
You're saying like the Rainmaker still exists in his timeline.
And the movie doesn't say that Sid won't become the Rainmaker. It doesn't say that.
True. We're only left to interpret it that way.
But let's say that Sid doesn't become the Rainmaker, right? Well, the thing is that old Joe kills Sarah and Sid becomes the Rainmaker. So young Joe, just sees it happen before, like, theoretically, he assumes that, oh, this is what's about to happen. I have to stop this from happening. enter, kill myself. If old Joe has already lived his life, this is the thing that I'm trying to get at. Old Joe lived that future out and saw it to fulfillment, right? He got to close his loop, go live that life.
And the Rainmaker still existed.
And him coming back changed
his future.
That future became the past. Old Joe lives in the present, right? Now, because he went back to the past. This is so complicated.
I now know why I picked whiskey to drink tonight.
Because I can't describe this shit. Future Joe, Joe that closed the loop, Joe's that wife died. He goes to the past, which becomes his present. And that present that everyone is living in is now affected by old Joe.
Yes.
Therefore, it's paradoxical, right? All this is paradoxical. This is why time travel has not been invented yet. Because it's all theoretical. It never works perfectly. The only thing that does work that could explain time travel is alternate realities, like alternate universes.
That's what I was thinking too.
Infinite universes. And Joe kind of talks about this too. He says, like, in the diner, he says, like, my memories become faded, like probabilities, like things that could happen and might happen, and when they do happen, they become more clear. That's kind of touches on alternate
and that's why
realities.
He loses focus of like his life with the woman he eventually marries.
Yes, super complicated, and I know that like we cannot tackle it on this podcast and try to like cement it in stone, because the movie, it kind of already breaks its own rules as far as like science goes, you know. In reality, like outside of the movie, like this is all still theoretical, and the movie's just like a vessel to tell a story between humanity and stuff. Like,
I got more.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. By all means, cut me off.
By what I just said, you could attack what I just said with, okay, well, Emily Blunt didn't die if Bruce Willis didn't go back in time, yada, yada, yada. Sid killed what he thought was his mom, right?
Yeah.
So, like, he would have still grown up thinking his mom died in front of his eyes, no matter what, whether Bruce Willis broke the space-time continuum and this whole fucking paradoxical situation. But if you take that viewpoint, it doesn't explain why he has a prosthetic jaw in the future.
Here's the other thing, though. Here's the other thing. It's not like the movie has said that these things are predetermined. Joe makes the selfless act in that moment to kill himself.
The invention of time travel itself makes the whole situation fucked up.
Yeah. It's super complicated. God damn. If you go back and kill your grandpa, how would you ever be born?
Like, would you just disappear from existence and like the entire
the thing
continuum would correct itself?
The thing is,
I don't know how this whole thing works, really.
The paradox is, if you go back and kill your grandpa, you technically wouldn't be able to go back in time and kill your grandpa. But my thing is if you go back and kill your grandpa, yourself, like, say I go back and kill my grandpa, and my future is already predetermined. I'm being removed from that timeline and going back and killing my grandpa. My future doesn't change because it's already happened, is what I'm getting at. Like, the reason why I would be able, and this is theoretical, the reason why I would be able to go back and kill my grandpa is because I've already been born, and in my future, my grandpa grows up, has a child, my father or mother has me. That is my past, because, like, it's saying, like, these things have happened, but for me to be born, I have to be born for me to go back and kill my grandpa. But it's like time travel hasn't been invented, so this doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. It's all a work of fiction.
Yes.
By Hollywood writers.
Quit asking questions, goddammit, you sensible white male. God damn it.
Fuck you.
It was
That's a good answer.
It was still a really good movie, though, right?
Excellent.
Yes.
Fucking excellent, man. It's just one of those things I was left wondering. One last tidbit before we head on to the later stages of this podcast. Murdering in the future is nearly impossible to get away with, right? Don't they shoot Bruce Willis's wife and kill her?
True.
Now,
true.
You can look at it as if...
I hate when you play devil's advocate.
One,
you ruin it.
Is it a plot hole, Or two, is it insinuated by the audience that the thugs that did it just got in trouble?
Yeah.
Or did they get in trouble because Bruce Willis kicked their ass before he sent himself back in time?
Mm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
he fixes it. I did the thing, is what he says.
Time travel is a super hard thing to tackle in fiction like this.
It's super hard to tackle when you're fucking drunk, goddammit. Why you do this?
And I can sit here, me and you, we can fucking go back and forth
for
on
hours.
the whole thing. And, like, I had questions. I just want to see your answer. Because, like, it doesn't hurt my enjoyment of the movie.
My brain hurt real bad now.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh, dude. This was it brought me an appreciation for a movie that when I first saw it, I went, that was okay.
Mm.
And that was, like, you know, like the 18-year-old version of myself. And now I'm like, damn.
I was like 12 when this movie came out.
Oh, man. I didn't see a good movie till I was like 14. Yeah.
I mentioned it earlier, but this movie like sits in a special place in time in the span of my life. I feel like I forgot about this movie, and like coming back to it as an adult, I'm like, wow. I remember being like moved by this when I was a child, but like even more now, like I caught on to more things of like some things I noticed about like Joe, him wanting to be comforted by a woman, not in a sexual way, but like in a motherly way with like Susie and stuff. At the end of the film, Emily Blunt, you know, actually rubs Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character's hair, you know, and then we turn into white and stuff. Kind of a callback back to like that comforting motherly thing he wanted from Susie and stuff.
In contrast to Jeff Daniels playing the fatherly figure and like being a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
You know,
very rule-oriented.
Which like his relationships, although fatherly, were like illegitimate.
Piss break.
Austin, my good friend.
Young Getter, my good friend.
What would you give Looper on a scale of 1 to 10?
While I think this movie's super masterful and does a lot, I couldn't help but feel, and this might be a hot take, I'm not quite sure. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
This movie makes me feel like I'm missing a little something. Not to say that the movie is lacking in any points. I think the nature of the story, the way that everything builds and cascades into this one moment at the end, makes the movie feel like some parts of it they don't have the weight that they create doesn't matter until the last 15 minutes. Therefore, the last 15 minutes are so important that like while they're happening before that, like all this time that passes before the last few minutes of the movie feel like such a slow burn to where I'm not sure that I'm like super in love with the whole film. It just feels like a long story that has a great ending.
Okay.
And I'm not mad. I'm not mad at the fact that maybe the time travel doesn't work perfectly, and there's a lot that I liked, but it's not perfect. The movie knows that it's not perfect, and it shows you that it's not perfect. But it was a lot of fun, and it was like emotional when it needed to be. And the cinematography is great, the world building's great, but it's an 8 out of 10 because it doesn't feel like the whole story matters until the last few minutes. Therefore, 8 out of 10.
Okay. I completely agree with that, actually.
Okay.
My score doesn't deviate that far from yours. I'd probably go a 8.5. Mm-hmm. Somewhere between an 8 and a 9. I don't mind that it takes so long to build to that climax because the journey...
It's a lot of fun.
...is a lot of fun. And I'm kind of one of those guys that's like, it's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
And that's usually how it is for a lot of these kind of movies with like thought-provoking indie... Oh my God. Thought-provoking endings. Yeah, no, I completely agree. If you ignore like the time travel stuff, you can always poke holes in it like fucking Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
You know, the way the inner logic of the movie works, it's great. The only big complaint I have, and this is something I probably should have mentioned earlier, Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Bruce Willis instead of Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing like one character. Mm-hmm. They could have made a character with very identifiable characteristics, but instead they went, well, let's have Joseph Gordon-Levitt play Bruce Willis. And like, it's probably in Bruce Willis's contract. I play Bruce Willis and I kill a lot of people. All right.
You work around that.
And anything else is extra. It's fine. Yeah, it works great. So yeah, 8.5 for me.
I think that's fair. That's probably the sentiment of most people. I just think a lot of things were a lot of fun, and then the emotional parts were like good and emotional.
And they got a kid that acted good.
Yeah. Really great.
I hate kid actors usually.
Yeah.
This kid fucking killed it.
Yeah.
He was convincing as like a kid that was going to grow up and be a menacing,
so
terror
true.
on society. His facial expressions, his ability to communicate, like he's intellectual
I
but
can't
young.
imagine.
Oh, dude.
There's so many
good.
films that have kid actors and that they weigh down a story so much because they feel so fake and tacked on to like a love interest or like, and the kid plays such an important role in the film's, lore and all that. And he absolutely crushes, man. I'm glad you mentioned that. I should have paid more homage to that.
All of the logical stuff in the movie kind of makes it easy to gloss over. Yeah, I noticed that,
All right. Enough about time travel and Bruce Willis. Please tell me what you have in store for me, because I actually have no fucking clue.
Good. I'm gonna throw you for a loop.
Okay, hold on.
No, don't guess.
Okay, all right.
Even if you know what it is.
You'll know. I'll know if I just.
I don't think you know.
Tell me what it is.
Okay, so Austin, you know me, right? You know I love Halloween. I love autumn. The fall is my favorite time of year, and we are approaching the 1 year. No, we've already passed it. 1 year anniversary of TDBR. Our first official episode, according to Apple Music, is our Psycho episode. We're in October. I don't like horror movies that much.
Please, God, no, don't suggest Hereditary.
I'm not. It's not Hereditary. It's not Midsommar. It's not an Ari Aster film.
All right, I'm good. I'm chilling.
This movie came out in 1982, and when it came out, it was a commercial and critical flop, and it almost ruined the career of the director that did it. But in the years that have followed, it has been regarded as one of the best horror movies of all time. It's directed by John Carpenter, the man that did Halloween.
Okay.
It is The Thing.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. I've never seen this.
Neither have I.
Oh, shit.
I've never seen this movie, but it's one that has been like on my to-watch list for a long time.
Oh, I'm hyped.
And the fact that like when it came out, it was kind of hated. It was voted one of the most hated movies of the 80s until like it took to like the late 90s for people to start come around on it. But
wow. Ooh, I'm excited.
It's something that I've wanted to watch for years.
This has got
it's got Kurt Russell.
I'm gonna say
and
Russell Crowe.
Mr. Diabetes himself, Wilford Brimley.
Actually super excited because I actually watched Alien for the first time recently.
Great movie.
And I have a great feeling that this is going to have like a similar pace and feel to it. Ooh, I'm excited. Ah, yeah, dude.
Yeah. I'm taking a gamble. Never seen it before, but I heard it's great.
This will be fun.
So I hope it's good. I hope we both enjoy it.
This is going to be exciting, dude. I'm hyped. Something about 80s horror, after watching Alien, I was like, oh, I get it now.
The good ones hit the sweet spot. I haven't seen a whole lot of John Carpenter movies, but he was in his prime at the time, and this is supposedly his best movie. Better than Halloween.
Hell yeah, I'm excited, dude. Shit, I'm hyped. We are so fucking drunk right now.
We've been so much worse.
We've been on the Terminator podcast, yeah, doing shots of Jaeger and stuff. Oh, that's exciting. I cannot wait. All right, man. Sign these motherfuckers out.
Adios.